How did Adolf Hitler, a tyrant whose orchestrations led to one of the most egregious genocides in human history, ascend to power within the framework of a supposedly democratic nation? The tale unfolds against the backdrop of the turbulent years post-World War I, with Hitler's narrative evolving into an epic saga saturated with desperation, simmering resentment, and a relentless march to dominance. As the curtains fell on the Great War in 1918, Germany found itself in a state of utter exhaustion and demoralization, coerced into signing an armistice while witnessing the disintegration of its imperial government. The nascent Weimar Republic emerged amidst the chaos, burdened with the formidable task of implementing a peace treaty forcefully imposed by the Allies. The sheer humiliation of relinquishing over 10% of its territory, disbanding its military apparatus, and unreservedly shouldering the blame for the war inflicted deep wounds on the national psyche. Nationalists and war veterans, ensnared in a whirlwind of misconceptions, pointed accusatory fingers at politicians and protesters, perceiving a betrayal during the war that fueled Hitler's obsessions, intensifying his intolerance and paranoia. In the crucible of a society already steeped in anti-Semitism, Hitler's incendiary speeches found resonance. Despite hundreds of thousands of Jews assimilating into German society post-war, the lingering perception of their foreignness persisted. The post-war success of the Jewish population birthed unfounded accusations of subversion and war profiteering, becoming the breeding ground for conspiracy theories born out of a toxic concoction of fear and intolerance within Hitler's psyche. His ascension to leadership began with his affiliation with a small nationalist party, becoming the catalyst for his rise. His manipulative oratory, a potent force, propelled him into the limelight, magnetizing increasingly larger audiences, seamlessly blending anti-Semitism with a populism fueled by resentment. Despite an initial lack of popularity, the Nazi Party faced a ban and Hitler's incarceration for treason following a failed coup to overthrow the government. His release a year later heralded the phoenix-like resurrection of the movement, coinciding with the onset of the Great Depression in 1929 that plunged Germany into a maelstrom of economic turmoil. The abrupt withdrawal of loans by American banks triggered the collapse of the German economy, providing Hitler with the opportune moment to capitalize on public anger. He adeptly crafted a narrative offering convenient scapegoats and the tantalizing promise to restore Germany to its former glory. Conventional political parties found themselves impotent in the face of the cascading crisis, while the fragmented left-wing opposition struggled to present a coherent alternative. The disgruntled public sought refuge in the Nazi Party, catapulting their parliamentary support from a mere 3% to a formidable 18% within a scant 2-year period. In a bid for the presidency in 1932, Hitler, although unsuccessful against war hero Hindenburg, garnered a significant 36% of the vote, underlining the extent of his burgeoning support. In 1933, advisors and influential business leaders successfully persuaded Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as Chancellor, envisioning the channeling of his popularity for their ulterior motives. Despite the chancellorship being primarily an administrative role within the parliamentary system, Hitler swiftly expanded the scope of his influence. Exploiting the fear of an imminent communist uprising, he deftly argued that only he possessed the prowess to restore law and order. The pivotal moment arrived in 1933, when a mysterious fire engulfed the parliament, providing Hitler with the perfect pretext to secure emergency powers. In a matter of months, the hitherto cherished freedom of the press was obliterated, political adversaries dissolved, and a cascade of anti-Semitic laws enacted. A purge ensued, with many of Hitler's early radical supporters meeting their demise alongside potential rivals. With the demise of Hindenburg in August 1934, any hopes of new elections evaporated. What adds a disconcerting layer to this narrative is the realization that many of Hitler's initial measures didn't necessitate widespread repression. His speeches masterfully exploited the latent fears and simmering anger of the populace, successfully consolidating their support. Business magnates and intellectuals, keen on aligning themselves with the prevailing public sentiment, threw their weight behind Hitler, assuring themselves and each other that his more extreme rhetoric was a mere facade. Decades later, the ascent of Hitler remains a haunting cautionary tale, underscoring the vulnerability of democratic institutions in the face of charismatic leaders adept at stoking public anger and exploiting the deepest fears embedded within the collective psyche.